Hi everyone, my name is Sunny and today's pick a card reading is going to be about the next big changes. Well, more or less, I'm going to be describing the chain of events that will occur before your next big change. I'm not sure how well I've not reworded, but how I'll word it more or less in the question, but that's more or less what I'm trying to get to. So I have 3 piles for you guys to choose from left to right. I have pile 1, 2, and 3. So if you need more time, you're more than welcome to pause the video and then, select the pile of your choice. Otherwise, skip to the timestamp in the description and I'll see you there. So I will start with pile number 1. So pile number 1, your card selection. You guys have the Knight of Cups upright. The next one is the, sorry. That was, yeah. The next one I have is the 10 of Wands reverse. Next is Temperance, upright. And your last card is the 5 of Wands, upright. So more or less the chain of events that will occur before your next big change or as you're headed that direction, pile number 1. Let me scoot this one up. It's more or less to, well, you're going to be given an opportunity. Maybe you're putting out a specific idea out there that you've been working on for a while, whether it's I feel like for some of you it's like a portfolio idea you've had for a while and you've kind of worked at it and finally it's like, okay, I'm ready to not showcase, but like I think that's what I'm going for. I'm ready to express myself to the world. I'm ready to show what I'm working on. Like maybe it's some writing project, right? Or maybe because you could be a novelist, or maybe you're someone that has been working behind the scenes diligently and maybe like making products like hair soap, right? Something that you put your heart into that makes you happy, but you're really good at it. It's a skill set that only you would have specifically. And even though it does seem like you are still like not necessarily green, but you're someone that's still relatively new at this, you do know what you're doing, so you have a good skill set in that aspect. So you're sharing like, hey guys, you guys want to buy this product, or I have this maybe you're like working on stickers, for example, and you like to sell stickers and you put your product out there and you're like kind of, what's that word? Not influencing, but you're kind of promoting yourself, advertising. And it seems like it'll be less work after you're probably done because this 10 of Wands is reversed. So you're walking away from maybe a lot of hard work and diligently. Maybe it was kind of weighing on you for a bit because you weren't sure whether it was going to be successful or not. But more or less that's the gist of this. With the Temperance card also upright, it's going to be something that you start to moderate yourself. Like, this is my workload, this is my off time, this is my free fun time. So you're moderating yourself with that emotional space that makes you happy, because maybe working makes you happy, right? Or just having something that you're striving for that makes you ambitious, makes you happy. Again, I have wand energy here for the most part. That's pretty strong with water. So it feels like you're someone that's very creative and very enthusiastic about your craft. But it does seem that once you start to moderate yourself, like, I don't have to work as hard as I was. I already went through not necessarily that the hard work's done, but more so getting started is probably always the hardest part, the hardest part always of any project, right? Or any endeavor that you start with. It's always hard to get that motivation. So you have the motivation, but you kind of have to know when to rest and stop. That's what it feels like. When to learn to kind of manage that and realize that, hey, I already did this part. Now I can focus on this part. Maybe it's like the advertising part that you're working on. That's your next step. Or how you can ship out, or managing logistics, right? Things like that come secondary to the already pre-started idea. And then with a 5 of Wands upright, it does feel like you're going to realize that it's a competitive field, or maybe you're not necessarily bickering with other people, but you have to kind of be not maybe a little bit on your toes when it comes to scoping out the competition, right? It's like, oh, this person's doing this. How can I level myself up to that? Or how can I do mine a little bit differently? Or how can I compete with that because they seem like they know they also know what they're doing, but I also know what I'm doing, but I can always find improvement. So it does feel like that, or at least it feels like you can choose to put yourself in that space of like, look, I'm out there and I know what it entailed, so I know that people will not always be happy with what I'm doing, but I'm ready to fight for what I believe in, for what I want. That's what it feels like. So once you start feeling out this vibe, pile number 1, it's more or less that next big change you're going to have an experience. This doesn't mean it might be this necessarily, but you'll start noticing these little small steps. But I don't feel like it's small steps. It feels like a lot of these steps kind of, maybe they were a little bit methodical, but it does feel like it's like a procedure. For me, it feels like these are like cause and effect, you know. Step 1, step 2, step 3, how to find success. That's what it feels like to me. But it feels like you intuitively know where to aim at because you know where to strive at. Like, it's just like your intuition kind of guides you to be ambitious, but also find success because you just know what to do. That it just gives me strong water, strong fire. So very, very creative and ambitious. Someone that's willing to put the work in and allow those creative juices to flow. But it feels like to me that you're kind of experiencing these to kind of get to the next step. So I hope you enjoyed that pile 1. Next. Nope, sorry. Oops, maybe you're attracted to pile number 3. I'm gonna scoot these. Oops. Sorry, pile 3 or pile 2 or pile 1 if you guys saw that. Maybe you were meant to see that. Pile number 2, your cards are the 7 of Pentacles reversed, the Moon upright, the Empress upright, and your last card is the Sun upright. I feel like I just there, like, boom, face it down. Okay, so pile number 2, more or less a chain of events that will occur. Mind you, I don't know if I mentioned this on the previous pile, but none of these events, or more or less a chain of events, have to be in a linear form. It could be kind of out of order, but more or less the message will be put out there so you get the gist of the meaning of the pile. For you, pile number 7, pile number 2, with the first card, I'm so sorry, with the 7 of Pentacles. The 7 of Pentacles reversed, you're someone that some of the first things that you're going to notice is that you're might be a little bit impatient. That's, the feeling of it is that you might be a little bit impatient. You might be scared, like with the Moon. It just feels like you're scared that things might not go the way you plan, or like maybe you have this, not expectation, but there's this like goal and this dream and pursuit of it, and you idealized it, and you're scared that it might not turn out exactly word by word how you idealized this particular event in your life. Whether it's, a person, a thing, an asset. But it just feels like you are scared that it might not be like that, right? That it might just be all for show and tell, or like it might just be unrealistic, right? So your patience is running thin when it comes to that, because you just don't know maybe if you're going about it the right way. And I think that's what's causing some fears and anxiety with the Moon card. But again, I'm gonna go back to focusing on the first card. It does feel like you're someone that maybe is keeping your investments to yourself, or maybe you're like being, for some, you can guys, why am I messing up so much with this pile? For you guys, learning to not be stubborn, or at least, be a little bit more flexible about things, how things can go about, like maybe if it's your finances, like being more flexible about how you're going to earn your income or receive income, because just because you're working very hard and diligently one way, in a very 3D way, like working that 9 to 5 job, for example, does that mean is the only way that is correct, or the only way that you can earn money? Like, it's not always like that. So maybe you learn to be more flexible because of this rigid structure that you hold dearly, right? So you learn that things are not going to go the way you planned if you continue to kind of hold on to that. So maybe that's where you're showing some impatience. You can also be kind of keeping that. I think you might be also be, you might also be choosier and pickier about where you invest yourself, because time is of the essence, time is of the money, and that, like, your energy is also a monetary asset you put value into. So maybe you're also investing yourself carefully in certain projects or certain situations, or when you're helping out people, it just feels like that. Like, if you're going about your day-to-day, you're gonna have to be more pickier and choosier. It's like you're more fickle because you know that you're not getting any investment in return. That's what it feels like. And you're kind of just keeping certain investments to yourself. It's like, if I'm not receiving anything, even though I'm being patient, then why am I investing myself in this particular project or asset or in a person? But it feels like it's a tangible thing that you're patiently waiting for. But because you know that perspective, like, your change of perspective is coming through of, like, it's not working out. So maybe if I go about it a different way, it's going to be running a lot smoother in that aspect. And maybe that can cause you some fears with the moon card upright, where you're like, this isn't working out, but I'm trying my best. So it's things like that, right? With the Empress upright and the Sun card reverse, maybe if it's the Empress upright is someone that's like a maternal figure, or someone that's very feminine, a very nurturing energy. Or maybe you're like, if you're trying to invest yourself, for example, in committing to a child, in the sense of conceiving a child or adopting a child, like, example that way, you're trying to see whether it's plausible, I guess is the best way to say it. Or it's like, is it achievable, is it realistic? Because it's it's a big investment, whether you go through, example, like IVF, or even the payments of having, like, lawyers and stuff like that, like facilitate the paperwork of adoption. It's lengthy, it's difficult, and you don't know if you're receiving that investment back. You don't know, because maybe it's like, I'm not very good, or like in these aspects, but like, example, having those people who have open adoptions, or like having your surrogate still have the option of keeping the baby if they want to. Like, you never know. I think that's why you're scared of certain investments like that. It doesn't have to be that you're investing yourself in that, like, motherhood like that, but it's one way that you can see, like, where I'm going with the lesson of, like, hey, this is an investment. You don't know whether you're receiving that investment back to yourself, that reward, because it's kind of up in the air, and not having control over it is kind of scary. It's kind of like, can I'm putting my happiness on someone else. I'm putting, like, my happiness is resting in their hands, and you can't blame the person if they do keep the baby, because it's part of the mother's rights, right? The birth mother's rights to keep the child if they wish to. So that's one way to see it. Or if it's like another way, where it's like a family, like you get with someone that has a family, and you don't know if it's like, hey, am I gonna be accepted into the family even though I'm, like, not their birth mother, or like not someone, like, you love your spouse, and you would love to be part of, like, their kids' lives, but again, kids are very fickle when it comes to whether they accept the new person in their life or not. Like, it's just something that you don't know. So with the Sun reverse, you could feel that, like, oh, I'm a little dim, like, my light kind of dims a bit. If it's not like that family aspect, it could be something that makes you feel very emotional. I feel it's a situation. I feel that it makes you feel emotional. Something might be occurring, but you feel like it's up in the air, and you feel like it's kind of making you doubt yourself. Your confidence is low. With that Sun card reverse, it feels like you are not at your best, and that's when your next big change might occur. Maybe it's because of this, and you're like, Am I really over my head about this? It just feels like, did I overestimate the power I have over certain situations, things like that? Or am I gonna feel nurtured enough if I go through this project? Or like, are people gonna accept me? Are they gonna be like, oh, that's great? Like, I put so much of my time and effort, and I feel like I might be ridiculed. Things like that. So that's your next big change. More or less the themes that you might touch upon your next big change in pile number 2. And I think I spent too much time on this, so I'm sorry. But you more or less know what's occurring. Last but not least, pile number 3. You guys have the 7 of Swords reverse, 9 of Pentacles upright, 2 of Pentacles upright, and the 10 of Swords reverse. More or less a chain of events that will occur before your next big change, pile number 3. This won't be linear, by the way. Just, take the message as you resonate, as it resonates with you particularly. First and foremost, I think you're going to be very direct when it comes to, I'm laughing at that 7 of Swords a little bit. But more so, it's like this pile has strong pentacle and strong sword. So very earthy, very airy. So it's good sometimes to have some amount of flexibility when it comes to not being so fixed in certain things. But more or less, the gist is that the first card is kind of giving you an idea that you're not going to be running into sketchy situations so much, because I think you're going to get a hold of something. Like, I feel like you're just ahead of the game in some aspect, that you just kind of, like, you sniff out the sus in something. Maybe it's a person that you're like, this person feels like they're up to no good. It feels like you are smart and you are cunning, and you're like walking away possibly, or maybe walking into situations, but you aren't, it doesn't feel for me that you're personally like you're, if you do walk into those sketchy situations where it could be difficult to get out of, it feels like you know what you're doing, but you're not necessarily going to get your hands dirty. It feels like you're like, oh, I just happened to be wrong place, wrong time, but I'm just an innocent bystander. With the 9 of Pentacles upright, it feels like you could be enjoying some of your fruits of labor. I think you might have been working diligently, slowly, carefully, but it feels like you know what you're doing. It just feels like you are enjoying your peace by yourself. You're enjoying and stopping to smell the roses. So with this 2 of Pentacles, 9 to 2, it just feels like you are maybe good at savings. You're earning your stripes possibly, but it feels like you're someone that, because you've stuck to certain habits of yours, you can possibly have made it easier for yourself in the long run, even though it might have not been that case and early on, to actually enjoy yourself. Like, hey, I can actually have a day or 2 off to myself, or I can go on vacation time and enjoy myself and still have some cash to spend. Or it just feels like because you saved for a rainy day, or you made sure that you didn't waste your money when you didn't need to, or didn't have that much. It's paying off, right? So it just feels like you don't have to stretch your dollar as much, or you don't have to stretch yourself thin and work diligently because you're short on cash, things like that. With this 10 of Swords reverse, it feels like you're starting a new beginning. Interesting. So maybe because whether you were in a partnership, for example, for some, that was kind of sticky. If you were in a partnership and somebody was playing you, or they were just taking your money, maybe it's that, where it's like they were kind of manipulating you. You're not manipulated easily anymore. It feels like you wisened up a bit and you learned to put up some boundaries. I wonder if for some of you guys, if it's not a romantic sense, it's a contract.